moderator of this event. So over to you, Brendon, to introduce the various people on the panel.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for everyone to tuning in to the BITA leadership in a disruptive world. First of all, I'd like to thank all the panellists for coming online. So we've got Lyndsey Gallagher, who's the Chief Operations Director at the Gallagher Group. We've got Jackie O'Donovan, who's the Managing Director of O'Donovan Waste Disposal.
Hi.
Hi. We've got Justin McInerney from SmartZone. And we've got Simon Baines, Head of Tax and Partner at Cooper Parry. So thank you very much for taking your time to come online with us. The first question I've got really is for Paul. And I want to ask Paul, when this first all kicked off and we knew the country was going to go into lockdown, what were your first thoughts of how BITA was going to respond to this new changing landscape? And can you talk me through a bit about your emotions of how you felt when you went through this?
Well, I suppose, the first thing that we had to recognize in terms of what we were then and what we were going to be now. So we examined our own mission very quickly in terms of how the organization was perceived before COVID-19. And we then examined the mission, and we examined what was going to change and how we were going to change to make this fit again. And I think that's very, very important for an organization to rectify that straight away, because we often get kind of, stuck in the business that we were and don't take any notice of a lot of the changes that are happening, expecting things to be going back to what they were. And I think we can all agree at this stage now that the first week was crisis management mode. The second week was kind of like, reactive mode. So we as an organization had to examine that mission. We questioned the mission, and we then said, what are we going to do to provide for the community in the new world as such? So we identified what is the new us and how we can help those, because one of the things that stood out for us as an organization in terms of the mantra of people who know people that help people was that word help. And we were asking people and pulling on the experience of our members now to be able to help one another, which really exercises what we are as an organization. So the first thing was to identify among the team within BITA that we were looking at this and examining this area and making those changes in accordance to facilitate the membership. And then making the mission fit again was the next thing when we did that. So that led us to, serious decisions within the organization, which we didn't delay. And I think that's one of the key points is, in terms of leadership, is not delaying and making your decisions. You've got to be brave, be strong, and be sure about the decisions that you're going to make. And in terms of the communication must be very clear. So the timing, obviously, then was the next thing that we had to examine in terms of, the first week was crisis management mode. So what was our responsibility as an organization in terms of what we did? So the first thing we did was identified that we couldn't do any events anymore. Therefore, we had to look at ourselves and reinvent the wheel in accordance to what we could do. So the online portal is where we went to first. And we identified that, it's a very busy time in terms of crisis management. So people didn't want to listen to anything other than what was relevant and what was important to them. So we concentrated on things like the finances of furlough, in terms of what grants were available, what assistance is available, in terms of understanding what government assistance was, and the rules and regulations around that. And we concentrated very much on those emotions because it was quite a frightening time for businesses to be facing a monumental change, and how you deal with that change was vitally important. We also stressed in terms of the patience that we've got to adapt to do, and also in terms of remaining calm. Because again, we reflected on what we are as a community in BITA, and that was a lot of companies. So the frequency of listening to each other and adapting into that mode more and more was something that we wanted to do. So the online portal is a way to do that. So we were able to present ourselves in certain topics that were relevant to the crisis, and only relevant to the crisis, because again, I stress that people were in this kind of, emotion of emergency at the moment. So the timing of doing other things was not in the first 2 weeks. As time went on and we reached the kind of second and third week phase, there was a sense of reality then coming in terms of, people getting used to a different world as such. And we adapted to that and brought in different variations of certain things like leadership training and other ways to utilize the downtime that you have staff on furlough. So we looked at the reality of where people are and businesses are, and again, look for the value, if we can find any value for our members, and share that information. And part of this, I suppose, today is talking about this with the particular industry leaders that we have, to share what their emotions are and share what their experiences are in terms of what was and what will be going forward. So again, the timing was vitally important for us. Last week, we decided after 2 weeks of this that we would do our first social interaction. And we had 68 people come on board. For those who saw it, we put on a blankety blanket, or a blankety blanket I call it, but a blankety blank kind of quiz where we had some amazing car crash TV. But that was to lighten the moment. And it was also to enlighten people how easy it is to actually use the technology of Zoom, which again for us was a whole new entity that now has become acceptable in business, that it is a form of communication. So while I would stress that I don't ever want to see the relevance of one-to-one communication and meeting people, we look forward to that moment again. But in the meantime, Zoom has become a very, very good proposition in terms of replacing that for now. And what it did for us straight away was, it in terms of cost, it's had a huge impact on our business and in the organization, because now we're able to have meetings in the likes of Ireland, America, Australia, and indeed, all the different chapters in the UK without traveling to those areas. So there was an advantage straight away that we realized as an organization. So talking about cost, that was one of the first things in terms of decision making. One of the first things we decided as an organization was to examine the costs and see what we could take down very quickly to give us a chance to actually survive this terrible virus. So a decision-making process in that regard was vitally important, and seeing where reality would kick in, where we can make cost reductions that would not scupper what the organization was all about, and that we could keep going for a period of time. We referred to the trust and integrity of the organization, and everything we do reflects the values of what we do, and we stay focused on that. We never lose focus of what we are all about. So what we didn't want to do was make too many changes within the organization that would almost cloud people's vision of what BITA is. So to answer your question, the main area we concentrated on was where we could put value in and what we had to do to make that monumental trade straight away.
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. Simon, can you give us a bit of a thought from your perspective on that? I mean, I know the first thing I did when all this happened was to pick up the phone to my accountant and find out what was our position, how he could help me, basically. I would imagine you've been inundated.
Yeah, we have. I think I'll start with the first thoughts. First thoughts for me were panic, fear. I think it's natural for all of us to have these personal feelings of, this thing, this virus, this terrible virus is going to sort of decimate our businesses, not only our businesses, but our clients' businesses. So getting around all of that initial reaction sort of was pretty quick, moved on to, as we just talked about there, what is the new reality, and working remotely. We have 24 hours notice to switch our entire workforce to remote working. That's 500 people, and we've done that sort of very successfully. So we're running audits remotely, we're running tax remotely, and we're running all of our services remotely now. Our challenges around that were sort of how would it stand up? It was untested. So many people working remotely. Whilst our business was set up to work remotely, we'd never done it en masse. So we quickly adapted to that. We then had to switch where our clients come in. Your question, what have we had from clients? So we act for clients in all sectors across many different sizes of business, and their needs are similar but very different. We have businesses that are thriving in certain sectors, and we have businesses that are struggling sort of desperately in relation to a sector that has sort of fallen off a cliff. So what the questions what we did initially, we set up a COVID-19 task force, so we get insight out to our clients, and we put daily updates out on our website. There's a COVID-19 page there which has got detail on there about access to all of the government support, and a bit more insight. We put a bit of insight in from our CFO, who's been working with our bank about the trials and tribulations of what a business interruption loan might look like if we needed it, and trying to get a bit of insight around those sort of things. The questions we're typically asking, clients typically asking us is around furlough, is around our experiences. What I am seeing is that, just picking the phone up and speaking to clients and being there to support them in conversations is as valuable as anything else at the moment. So I picked the phone up to one of my clients only yesterday and just said, how are you doing? It's pretty lonely sometimes for leaders, and sometimes forgotten. And just to be able to have that chat is a massive help and a massive support for clients. Many issues are the same, they come in different ways. So I don't know if that answers the question, but we're talking to our clients as much as possible. We've gone through the whole gambit of emotions. We're focusing on sort of what the new world looks like now, and most of the people we talk to in our businesses are doing the same, and we're working with them to help them do that.
Yeah, thanks very much, Simon. I think one of the keynotes there was that, being the leader, it's a very lonely place. And I think where BITA can help with that is you're with like-minded people to help to pull you together and get that support. On that, just following off on that, Lyndsey, could I ask you a question about what kind of difficult decisions did you have to make at the very start of this outbreak of the virus? So, Lyndsey, you just need to unmute.
Am I there?
You're there.
Oh, okay. Again, like Simon said, we set up a task force of leadership group and our HR lady. We looked at the impact on our industry and looked at strategy of what would be worst case scenario. We, like Paul mentioned earlier, we were very clear we've got to stick with our values within the business. We won't not pay our bills. So we were very clear quite early on how we were going to work through this crisis. I mean, every day in the first week or 10 days, things were changing on a daily basis. We'd get over one hurdle and, two other problems were popping up. So it was a day by day, hour by hour crisis meetings. And it was also finding the new norm. So the industry went into panic. Some people were shutting down, some people were staying open. Our staff as leaders, I agree again with Simon, it's a lonely place. Luckily for us, we're a very tight-knit team. And I think construction really do pull together in tough times. We adapt quite quickly. And it was important for us to stay calm and calm for our staff as well. So, and try and reassure them. So that was, but there's also, everyone here knows we've all got tough decisions. Tough decisions is cash coming in, payments. The furlough system was brilliant. And that really lightened, I'd say, was a welcome boost and lifted all our employees and us, gave us confidence. And it gave us time to then think and plan, which was really good. So, but yeah. And I think the other point would be we looked at our staff. We're a family business. We've got staff that's worked for us for years. The difficult decisions were going the same to some of our staff. We're sending you home. This was well before the lockdown. We'll pay you, but because you mean more to us than you coming into work. So, and these staff were saying, no, I want to keep working. So, we were kicking people out the door. But yeah, there's been lots of decisions.
Thanks very much, Lyndsey. Jackie, have you got anything to add to that?
Oh, just unmuting myself. Firstly, apologies that I've got no picture. My technology's not working. Our team's probably smaller than Lyndsey, so there was only a small group of us, and we just dealt with it as it came, really. So yeah, very positive reaction from the staff. I felt it very important that I kept close contact with the staff. So we've got various WhatsApp groups that I send out updates and messages just to let them know that we're still here, I'm still here, and everything will be okay. But yeah, really emphasising the 2 metre distancing and washing their hands, stay in, and we'll be all back to normal as soon as possible.
Yeah, just following on from that, emotionally, what effect do you think it's had on the relationships with your colleagues and your team, and how have you managed that?
Well, I actually think it's had a positive effect. I think it's brought people closer because they've had to work together. So where we've furloughed quite a few of the workers, some of the drivers are still working, and they appreciate that, one, they're not climbing the walls at home, but two, that they have to come in, that they can't then turn around and say, oh, I need a day off to do something, the garden, because the sun's been out. So I think it's actually brought us a lot closer together because we've had a lot more interaction as opposed to crossing each other in the yard because we were running from one job to another.
Thanks very much for that. Yeah, Simon, similar kind of question for you, because yours is a slightly different situation where you're distributed to 500 people all working from home now. It must be quite difficult to communicate with them. How have you managed to tackle that emotionally?
Okay, I'll just pick up on one point first, just finishing off on the last point. I think on the furlough, I think it's really important that anybody in business keeps really meticulous records on this. We are expecting the revenue to look hard at furlough, sort of post COVID-19, to look at the claims that have been made. They'll be looking for fraud, so we're expecting businesses to be inquired into on the furlough scheme to make sure there's not been any abuse. And the revenue have pretty much stated that. There's a requirement to keep records for an additional period as well, so you need to keep your furlough records for 5 years. So it's important that you just get dot the I's and cross the T's. I think it was announced today or yesterday that it's also been clarified that any furloughed employees need to agree in writing to be furloughed. So you just need to just check on sort of the detail to make sure you're actually complying. Otherwise, you could fall foul of claims being sort of refused or taken back at some future date. So turning to how to stay in touch. So we have 500 people in our business, as you say, split across 5 different disciplines. The tax team is around about 70 people, which I run, the tax team. So we use Microsoft Teams, which is similar in some ways to Zoom. We have the same video call capability, and most of our communication is now via Teams, so which cuts a lot of email out, which I think is really good. What I'm doing, I speak to the team on a weekly basis, so we have something called a tee-off, where everybody tunes in. I update the team. I'm very open and very honest with the team on decisions that we're making. I inform them how we're doing financially. I talk to them about if we have furloughed people, why are we doing it? Talking about the forecasting for the future. And we also put a bit of fun into it. So we try and keep the team sort of fully up to speed with what's going on. I have to say the team have been fantastic. Those that have been furloughed have really sort of understood why. So I think the key is being open and honest. I think Lyndsey and Jackie talked about WhatsApp groups. We've also got a tax team WhatsApp group, which the team is sharing all kinds of bits of fun and sort of stories on, and so it's helping to keep the morale up. I've actually seen a real community of people coming together, and I agree that people are actually coming closer together as a result of this. So yeah, just keeping people, being open and honest and keeping people informed is the way that I'm dealing with it.
So just going back, what would those records include which you'd need to keep, and how do you prove that someone isn't working? Because I believe that you can actually do training and you can do anything.
Yeah. I think that's right. You can do training. I think the key point is you can't do anything that makes money or grows revenue or delivers revenue to your business. The records, there's no, as my understanding of this is that there's no sort of stipulated method which you do it. But yeah, for example, we will be sending a letter to our team members and asking them to acknowledge in writing that letter. And initially we were sending them saying acknowledge in writing, or if we don't hear from you by X date, we'll assume that you've accepted it. I think the simple answer is the records are that you have to have a letter that's gone to the client and a response from that client, from that employee. I think in relation to training, I mean, it's very difficult, isn't it? I mean, what we have seen in wider sort of inquiries with the revenue in the past, they have the powers to request emails and email traffic and correspondence between certainly ourselves and businesses. I suspect they're likely to, if they really suspect foul play, I suspect they might use their powers to request communication lines. I think it'd be in some very rare cases, if I'm honest. But I think that, if they suspect foul play, that's the sort of route they could go down. Just get your letters in place. I think that's the key, and be very clear on those letters that you're stating what an employee can and can't do. Yeah.
Thanks very much for that, Simon.
Okay.
Paul, just coming back to you, same question really. What emotions did you go through this problem?
Well, I suppose the emotions that we went through initially were the whole aspect of questioning, was there relevance to BITA anymore? I mean, the first emotion I went through was, I've spent 8 years building this organization to provide a betterment for the members in terms of value. And the straight and honest question I had to ask myself was, is this over? Is there a need for an organization of this anymore? Because, there's a monumental change happening here. And what we did in order to identify that was, firstly, be honest with oneself, and then put the question out to others. And the feedback we got was overwhelming. We were told that the identity of the organization is needed more now than ever before. So then it became a task to actually create what is the new BITA in terms of how we can do that. So we reacted very quickly by creating the online portal, and we acted very responsibly in terms of the content that we actually put on the portal and the timing of it, So, and that's what we continue to do, because as always, we have a duty of care for our membership, and whether it's GDPR or brand positioning or representation or the standard of events that we do, we always have to be mindful of who we're representing and why we're representing and what we're doing. So what importance do we have now as we manage ourselves to reflect these values? So we continue to serve our members, and we do so with community, with solidarity, with passion, and with delivery. And we hope that success then leads to value, and it leads to people believing more in terms of what we are as an organization. I suppose what happened and hit me at the start of the process was I unfortunately contracted COVID-19, and this had a huge impact because suddenly I disappeared off the planet for a while I was dealing with that. And what I thought was going to be a kind of 3 or 4 day process turned into 14 days. We were lucky as an organization that we had these discussions prior to that. So we had a plan in place, and we were executing that plan. And I compliment Diane and the team and Laura and others in terms of executing that in my absence. And so I can't take all the credit for what has actually happened here. But it just shows the resilience and reaction. And again, going back to in terms of leadership, what we're talking about here was clear decision making, a clear process, and a clear execution in terms of how we actually created that process. So we actually regard the leadership that we have in the organization to be a flexible leadership. So we question. We have involvement, and we have frequency, and just to go through those 3 points in terms of what we do as an organization is we don't sit back and be satisfied in terms of what we've done. We always try and push ourselves to betterment and make that value more value for our members. In terms of involvement, what we do is we ask people, because you can get into a habit of living in your own bubble and, you know, believing in your own PR, and you miss opportunities. So we as an organization have a habit of asking people, which leads to trust and loyalty. And I mean, there's a brilliant quote: ivory towers don't work for anybody else other than those in an ivory tower. And I'm a firm believer of that, you know. So, you know, in terms of frequency, we also have reminded ourselves, and one of the things that we've changed now is we have a morning, every morning we have a strategy meeting with all the team. And we identify what is going to happen that day, what needs to be done. We've adapted systems like Gold Vision, and we've adapted systems in terms of CRM. So what people are going to see within BITA now is the backroom and the information and data that we have is far more robust and can be of a lot of use. So we're going to come out of this in readiment. We're going to come out of this more infused with a lot more ability in terms of reporting, and a lot more, you know, enthusiasm, and that will connect and resonate, I hope, with our members.
Thanks for that, Paul. I'm not sure we can get any more enthusiastic than you. It could be quite a scary future. Justin, for yourself, could you talk to me about your emotions and how you think this is going to affect your product launch?
I'm assuming you can all hear me. From our perspective, I think we probably agree with everything that Simon, Lyndsey, Jackie have said, Paul has said. All of the same things occurred, all of the same fears impacted on us in the company. I think we're in a slightly unusual one in that obviously we're Irish based, but we have a foot in the UK as well. And so we're looking at the impacts that had. We did all of the stuff that you guys have done in terms of staff and in terms of taking advantage of government supports, etc. We got through that emotional attack, if you like, and that was fairly stressful. I think the most stressful one was when they shut the company down or the country down completely and limited our ability to trade at all. I mean, we went from, you know, turning over X to a 90% drop overnight, literally month purely because our business is involved in installing smart home and security and etc. technology in homes, both here and in the UK. And so we had to take on board all of those decisions. We got together with the board, our existing board plus our non-execs, and we sat down. We now have a twice monthly or every 2 weeks, we have a review with those guys. We reached out and put in a plan to manage all the financial parts that we needed to take care of, take advantage of all the supports that we could, and there's plenty of them. Ireland is, and the impacts of the lockdown have been severe, and there's no doubt they're as severe in the UK. And, you know, I'm not really going to spend too much more time talking about that. I'm more looking at from an emotional standpoint, we definitely took the view is, what do we do now? How can we actually generate some business for our tech? So when you talk about product launch, we're actually, you know, we're trading with SmartZone tech and smart home tech for the last 5 years, but we launched significantly some new leak detection stuff that Paul and I were doing some work on in the UK. And that's probably slowed us down, even though we've actually got a lot of activity going on in the background. There's a lot of stuff we're doing currently with our partners, some of the big insurance companies in the UK, some of the bigger construction companies in the UK, where we're just planning the rollout and that kind of stuff. We've really moved to a digital sort of first experience from our business's perspective. It's amazing. I think you'll all have heard that never waste a good crisis. So we've all kind of moved from, oh shit, to, okay, what do we do now? And where's my glass ball so I can try and forecast what's actually going to occur at the end of this month, or certainly into the start of next month. And the indicators are, I don't know about you guys, and it would be good to get a poll on this. We don't think the market's going to recover significantly until probably September. We think there's going to be a gentle planned reopening or unsocializing, or, you know, getting back to normal stuff. But, you know, restaurants, pubs, that kind of stuff, can't see it happening certainly through to late summer. And the reasoning behind that is purely down to the fact we don't have a virus, we don't have an antidote or a vaccine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all these uncertainties could drive you insane. I've become an expert baker. I've learned how to walk about 15 miles a day. My daughter has practically killed me every morning for the last 2 weeks. So I'm on the COVID-19 diet. Anybody wants to join, we'll do a 5K run at the end of this. So emotionally, yeah, it was a big fright. Opportunistically, what can we do now? And the team we've actually retained, it's amazing the efficiencies you can get now compared to prior to this, when business as usual was kind of trundling along. We were all happy doing our bit. We're getting, way more efficient in doing all sorts of stuff. Like Paul mentioned, Zoom calls all over the world. I'm not sure I'll ever bother flying anywhere ever again other than to go on holidays or for specific meetings. But there was a time when I'd happily jump in a car or jump on a plane and fly to London for an hour meeting with Paul, and we'd drink coffee and pat ourselves in the back and say what wonderful guys we were. Reality is we could have done it in 20 minutes on Zoom and gone for a walk. So all of those wonderful things are kind of appearing or coming out of the woodwork. And I think that's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much, Justin. Now, again, difficult times, difficult things happen. And this is specifically really talking to Jackie and Lyndsey. There's going to be quite a few of the smaller subcontractors who might not make it through this crisis. So what are you doing to protect and look at your supply chains for the new world when we do emerge? And we start with Lyndsey.
Unmute.
Unmute.
There we go. Yeah, I can hear you now, Lyndsey. Thanks.
Sorry. What are we doing? So we're committed to paying our subcontractors and suppliers on time. I don't want to jinx ourselves, but we've been incredibly lucky with our clients. They've really been supportive. Some of them have even paid us ahead of schedule. And we're very much a business. If you do a day's work, you deserve to be paid for it. So our subcontractors have worked for us, some of them for 25 years. They're vital to our business, and we would be crippled without them. So they're part of the family as well in our eyes. So we also communicate to them. So some of the smaller subcontractors don't have the help and HR assistance or accountancy assistance. So we've been helping them with the understanding the government guidelines, how we work, what is the new norm, training. We had an ex-surgeon that went around the whole business doing toolbox talks with all of our staff, explaining about the virus and giving them tips and drilling into them about the new norm for working. So as far as we're concerned, we've got to treat them fairly. And I think after this, I honestly believe that a lot of good will come out of this, and I think we'll treat people better, and I think we'll get a lot of loyalty. How we treat people now will serve us in the future, and I think as long as and also it will align us to who we want to work for in the future as well, because those that treat us badly now, we won't want to work for them when times get good again, and times will get good again. So, but as far as subcontractors, they're part of our family, and we've got to look after them.
Yeah, brilliant. Excellent answer. Jackie?
We are actually in the supply chain to the construction industry, so we would have very few subcontractors, but obviously they're getting pulled to the front of the queue. I just want to go back on something Simon said about furlough. I actually think the government's done a fantastic job of coming up with everything. The furlough, none of us heard the word before a few weeks ago. Now we're all experts on it. I think it's been really clean cut, precise instructions and what we're to do as businesses, and I think it's been made easy because it is so simple. So I actually think that the government's done a fantastic job. But as for the few subcontractors that we would engage with, we would obviously bring them to the front, and no more than Lyndsey, advising them where they haven't got the expert advice because they don't have HR and what have you.
And how do you think waste management has changed in the current crisis?
There's a lot of people doing their gardens at the moment, I can tell you that. How's it changed? It hasn't really. It's still moving. I think that when the construction industry were given a bit of a slap on the wrist for creating the traffic in the tubes on the buses, I think people withdrew and ran for the hills, and I can see that turning now, and people and sites are starting to go back. But yeah, there will be a new norm, definitely. I just hope it won't turn into a nightmare of stupidity, like some health and safety issues.
Yeah, we had another question come in. Are there stricter guidelines for getting rid of the waste now?
No, if anything, probably looser guidelines, because people aren't out and about checking, and a lot of people, especially the energy from waste plants, are running out of feedstock to supply the energy. So they're actually ringing around looking for waste to keep the plants going.
Very, very interesting, yes. Paul, similar kind of question to you, but slightly different angle. How do you think BITA can help with any gaps in supply chain moving forward? Once you've unmuted, Paul.
Okay.
There we go.
Well, first and foremost, I mean, our stance in terms of the construction industry is we applaud those who made the very brave decisions of continuation in this current crisis. We consider the importance of the construction industry, particularly at this time, because the economy needs to be stabilized in some way, shape or form, and we can't kind of make an industry that big redundant right now. So, I mean, I think the importance, we cannot underestimate the importance of that brave decisions of those companies to remain open during this crisis. We can see already that there's been several companies made amazing changes in the organization of sites and stuff like that, in terms of social distancing and putting measures in to facilitate in that regard. And I mean, there was a lot of you know, bad press, you know, starting to resonate at the start of this process. And I'd like to knock that on the head, you know, and say that it's so important to have the economy supported by the construction industry. It's as important to the economy as the NHS is. And I applaud those who continue to strive towards keeping those sites open and reopening those sites. And we'd encourage that. You know, in regards to support to contractors, we as an organisation have set up the portal to answer any questions and create events in terms of like this to facilitate in any way. So if any of the contractors would like to contact us and create a forum that would facilitate helping them in any way, shape or form, well, we will make ourselves available to do that and make it a priority really, because right now they need us more than ever. Another organisation I'd like to bring into it in terms of just giving a shout out is the Lighthouse Charity. And at the moment, you know, you can imagine how busy their lines are in this terrible time and the amount that they have to deal with. So if ever we need to support the Lighthouse, it is now. And, you know, we have many organisations who we've supported in the last 2 weeks. In particular, we supported the London Irish effort and Power Day in feeding 800 nurses on a daily basis, which again was a fantastic effort, an amazing achievement. And Jackie has done similar things as well, and Gallagher has done similar things as well. But the Lighthouse Charity for me is the industry charity, and it should know we should pay a special effort in supporting them in this present time.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Paul. Finally, now that we're facing the new world order, how will the new normal look to your organisation and, more importantly, to your clients? And if we start off with Justin first, if you could just talk about that particular subject, please, Justin.
I think we've seen, because of our technology and the different things we do in terms of homes, one of the interesting ones that we've had a huge reaction to is looking after mum and dad, and the inability for people to be able to visit parents or elderly when they're caring for them. And that's really caused a major problem, both, I'm assuming, the UK and Ireland. So we do a lot of tech that has cameras and two-way voice and all that sorts of stuff. So we've had quite an interesting response to that. I think generally, one of the things we started to do was normally we would go into a home and do home assessments where we're looking at the house to sort of design a system. So we've moved that completely to virtualization. So we're using some tech that we imported from the States where we can do it on the phone. So we'll see a lot of that. We can remove thousands of miles of van rolls and car rolls and diesel bills, and we can survey 10 homes instead of 2 in any given day and not drive halfway around the country to do that. So that's an interesting one. I think smart home generally, and the ability, people have spent rather a lot of time sitting in their houses and realize that their thermostats and generally the control of temperature and comfort in homes isn't great. So that's going to impact on them. And then they're looking at, okay, what can I do? How can I do it? And hopefully that'll impact us. Other than that, I think the other area that we're looking at is in the commercial side, where we see a lot of properties that have been locked up now for the last 2 or 3 weeks in Ireland. I'm not sure if it's probably the same time frame now in the UK at this stage. And one of the bigger risks that we're attacking is water, escape of water, leaks in properties, leaks in buildings generally. And you can rest assured that there's been a lot of issues where pipes have popped while everybody has been at home. So we're seeing, the deployment of our type of tech. I think you asked me earlier about what does the new normal look like from the point of view of technology and point of view. I think all of us are going to be looking at remote communication like Zoom, etc., for efficiencies. And, we're going to be looking at the world from a climate change perspective far more aggressively. I think that'll actually be forced upon us in terms of mass scale funding that's going to come down the line if governments are going to bail companies out, particularly airlines. They're going to be forced to fund green initiatives, and the green economy is going to come at us like a steam train. I think the technology and the whole benefit of it is going to last a lot longer than we think. This is going to go on into next year. I think there's going to be quite a lot of changing of habits. They say that it takes about 6 weeks to form a habit. I think once we've all got used to the new norm, it probably won't be a bad thing, really. It'll be more efficient. So technology should be good for us. We are seeing a benefit. We're not seeing the sales uplift yet because we can't physically reenact with the customers and get back into the homes, but that's coming.
Yeah, and just on the breaking news from the BBC, we're definitely in lockdown in the UK for another 3 weeks. So we're going to be on that 6 weeks for the change of the habit. Simon, similar kind of question for you?
Yeah, I think inevitable questions around office space, how much we need and how much we use going forward, the new norm of picking up on Justin's comments there, the remote working. I think a lot of businesses have had technology plans for the next 2 to 3 years. They've been condensed down to the last 2 to 3 weeks as they've had to adapt to the digital way of working. So I think that inevitably will continue. I think we'll never go back to as much time spent in the offices, as much travel. I totally agree with the greener sort of approach. Quite all of us in our sector would quite comfortably get on a plane and fly over to the US to do business when we can deal with it so easily, and we're proving to be dealing with it so easily remotely. I think our clients are equally adapting the same way. They need to adapt to the remote working. You take what can benefit clients at the moment. So, for example, we've got a lot of our businesses we work with need cash at the moment and get as much cash as they can. They're claiming research and development tax credits from the government. We've always done that face to face and reviewing sort of their policies. We could do that remotely now. And interestingly, for the construction sector, it's a relief that is not widely used. And the revenue is the only sector that the revenue have ever published a document encouraging claims from the construction sector. So, for generating cash, we don't have to wait until we're able to go back to the old norm of meeting face to face. All of these things can be done remotely. I think on a similar in many ways 2008-9, but different in many ways. I think coming out of this and shaping your business for the future, we need to challenge everything that we do and all ways that we work and reshape our businesses to what is the new norm, because this is not going away. The new norm will not revert back to the old norm. New norm's here to stay, in my view, and we need to still make best use of it.
Thanks very much, Simon. Now, I've got one last question, and this is going to be a less than 30-second answer off each of you. What's the single best piece of advice each panel member would give right now in this time of uncertainty? And we'll start off with Jackie.
Gosh, what piece of advice would I give? That there is an end. I think people are really, really struggling with when is it going to end? When are they going to be able to get back to work? So I suppose my bit of advice would be it will come to an end quicker than we know, and we'll be back not knowing whether it's Monday or Friday again. So they should try and enjoy it as opposed to climbing the walls and counting the minutes and the days and the hours.
Brilliant. Justin, again, less than 30 seconds.
I would say conserve your cash and manage it as carefully as you can. And I agree with Jackie, communicate with everybody, stakeholders, teams, staff, anybody that matters to your business every day.
Brilliant. Lyndsey?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Again, cash is king. Look at your business, look at where you can improve. There is going to be an end, and I think we'll all come out of this a lot better. Let's be positive. Let's look at the positives we can learn from this experience and look after each other and treat each other better.
Brilliant. Thank you. Simon?
Similar, cash is king here, look after your cash, but I would also suggest that everybody talks to their peers. We don't necessarily have enemies in business, so talk to your peers, talk to your advisors. People are always here to listen and share views. It's much better if you share your views with people.
Brilliant. And just from my perspective, things in my world have got faster, not slower, because everyone's packing in Zoom calls left, right and centre. On a final note, can I bring our president on for the final words? And can I also thank everyone on the panel and everyone who's joined us for this session. It's been superb. Thank you. Over to you, Paul.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody at very short notice, but it just goes to show the power of the platform in terms of what we can do. I can't thank people enough for their kindness, friendship, and understanding in present times. I go back to community, solidarity, passion and calm. But I do leave you on one note. For God's sake, renew your membership or else we won't be around.
Thanks very much, Paul.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, everyone. Thank you for the session.
Well done. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.